Hello, I'm Robin Young. In Life on this weekend edition of USA Today, we'll tell you how to know when you're truly in love.
Do you like sex?
What do you think?
I'm Edie Magnus. Our profile, Susan Sarandon on Marlon Brando and Don Johnson. And that's no Bull Durham.
Love is a lot like baseball. It's not whether you win or lose. It's how you play the game.
I'm Kenneth Walker. In Money, Classic Cars, how pink Cadillacs turn to gold.
And I'm Bill Macatee. In sports, has success spoiled Doug Williams?
You got to take some time out for yourself.
All of that and more on USA Today's Weekend Edition.
From the USA Today Communication Center in Arlington, Virginia, here is Robin Young.
A new USA Weekend magazine poll confirms what most of us suspected. We are a nation of fitness fanatics. And when folks aren't pumping iron or running laps, they're often out spreading the health gospel, whether or not anyone else wants to listen. Remember when Ronald Reagan sold cigarettes for a living? Today, somebody would be bugging him to stop. It's the habit we hate the most. We asked what you thought of people with unhealthy habits, and almost 60% said they just don't care enough to change. But the majority did say that unhealthy people either didn't have the will to change or just didn't know any better.
Fill them up? Yeah, 2 more. Oh, wait a minute. Hey, let's have a real shot this time. You know, straight bourbon.
Oh, I don't think
Oh, come on. This is no night for beer. This is a celebration.
Nowadays, a wild night could include a discussion of cholesterol, with your date encouraging you to order the fish instead of the steak. When asked, have you ever asked someone to change a habit? The overwhelming majority said yes. In today's healthier-than-thou environment, the day after can mean more than just a hangover. We asked, have you ever felt guilty about doing something you know isn't good for you? And almost half of you said yes. But you know, in spite of all the health hoopla, there are still millions of people out there who find themselves scratching their heads when some fitness fanatic talks about runner's high. For these folks, life would seem a bit empty without daily heapings of deep-fried food. We caught up with one person who thinks of sloth and gluttony as virtuous qualities, writer Fran Lebowitz.
1, 2, 3, 4, now left. 2.
I never feel guilty about eating.
4,
You know. And apparently the rest of the culture doesn't feel guilty about anything. So, I mean, I feel that, you know, if Ivan Boesky doesn't feel guilty about what he did, you know, should I feel guilty because I have 2 rolls of spaghetti?
3, 4, now left. 2.
I actually think of it as gym. And I think, you know, I'm 37 now. I don't have to go to gym anymore, and I'm not going.
2.
I don't go to geometry either.
4, last time right. 2, 3, 4.
To me, it's like, it's all things, like not drinking, not smoking, not eating steak, not eating ice cream, all these things. I think it depends on whether you want to live forever, or if you imagine that you could, or if you just want it to seem like it's forever.
Did she have to remind us of gym class? Well, daytime TV breaks new ground this October 6th. Ryan's Hope will air a scene that involves actual homeless children who live in the Prince George Hotel in Manhattan. Eileen Kristen, one of the show's stars, has been volunteering at that hotel for some time, giving the kids acting lessons. Well, now that project comes full circle. About a dozen children will appear on that show. This summer's writer's strike set back the primetime schedule and forced the networks to scramble for new programming this fall. But in upstate New York, in a small town called Glens Falls, local viewers couldn't care less. They're tuning to Magic TV 8, sort of the tiny little station that could.
Welcome to this edition of Manager's Mailbox. I'm Jim Gritch, along with Mike Rico, and we want to see some letters coming in, so we have something to do for half an hour.
When he's not improvising on his own show, Jim Gritch, the owner of TV8, is running the station he built from scratch. Some may scoff at his small operation, but Jim feels there's a place for his kind of TV. You feel you perform a service?
I believe so. I think We are more akin to what FM radio was maybe 15 years ago. That's basically what I hear about low-power television. It's not going to work. You can't compete with the big boys. Well, we're not trying to compete. We're trying to service a community instead of a regional area.
Running a TV station with 10 people, 3 sets, and 2 microphones is not easy. Jim's 12-hour days include reassuring show guests, editing, set design, lighting, directing, and engineering. You're a little kingpin here, and how does that feel to know that you could build it, you can run it, you can be on it?
It's tiring. It's difficult to prove yourself when you're a pioneering station. Sometimes you sit back and say, why, what's going on here? But I'll tell you that there are periods of time where we have really unique programs.
Hello. Here we are once again inside the Blue Line.
Good evening. The name of the program is Crossfire. My name is Ed Bartholomew.
What would you like me to tell you about your foot?
Our guest tonight is the manager of the Glens Falls Tigers, John Walkenfuss.
Good evening and welcome to TV8 Local News. I'm John Del Negro.
When 23-year-old reporter, anchor, cameraman John Del Negro hits the streets of Glens Falls, home video recorder in hand, can news be far away? The big story today, what is the mayor doing to keep the town's AA baseball team from leaving?
As you already know, the Glens Falls Tigers...
People seem to find you. All of a sudden, they say, who are these people that are out there in the community? And, can I see myself somewhere? Eventually, they find us. I think LPTV is the wave of the future for television.
And I'm John Del Negro. Have a good evening.
Keep your eye on that guy. Well, it has been just over a year since the loss of her husband, Edgar Rosenberg, but Joan Rivers has bounced back with a critically acclaimed Broadway role. Our New York correspondent, Marianne Grabovoy, caught up with her backstage between performances of Neil Simon's Broadway Bound.
Well, I liked it. It was lively. The actors were good. Everybody remember their lines?
It's radio, Ma. They read them from scripts.
The part is such a challenge. Every night, it's different. Everything we say about Broadway is true. Every night it's different. Every audience is different. You come off feeling so good. You get so much back from the audience. It's wonderful.
Were you afraid the critics wouldn't accept you on Broadway?
I was very worried. I was very frightened. And boy, it's been a Valentine that's come back.
I have to go next door into the Slutsy. Borrow some honey for this one's tea.
What's next for Joan Rivers?
I started to miss television. So whatever you don't do, you miss. I was here for 4 months. I said, gee, it's time to go back to my own show. Enough. And I'll probably do that. And then I hope to do something on Broadway again and be in New York.
It's good to see her back. And coming up, how to tell when love is real. But first, let me introduce you to a program that's sure to inspire us all. It's called Invent America. Now, from time to time, we'll be meeting some of its young inventors along with their proud inventions. It's been said that Thomas Edison designed a homemade telegraph by the age of 10. So here's to the Edisons of the 90s and a boy who might have just the answer for a bad back in a crowded airport.
My name is Jimmy Harris, and I'm 11. And this is my invention, the RCQC. That stands for Remote Control Quick Case. The RCQC is really a mobile suitcase. I took a printer box and sprayed it with brown spray paint. And then I put 2 remote control cars on the bottom and then 2 wheels in the front. You're free of the lugging around, of getting tired. You can have fun, while you're driving it around, dash into something, scare someone, if you have to run somewhere, or it can switch it onto turbo and it goes. No thanks.
All you need to to do is look in the bookstores to see that we are obsessed with love. Men who love women, women who don't. What your parents had to do with the whole thing. Have you noticed?
I don't think as though it's just the bookstores. I mean, you look at the talk shows, you talk to people around you. I mean, it's a pretty hot topic these days. I think one of the reasons is our society is so fast that occasionally you need a fulcrum to hang on to, and that's a pretty basic thing.
Right. Well, we are hanging on to it now. In fact, there is an addition to the bookshelf. It's called False Love. And psychologist Stan Katz says that it's the media that's giving us the wrong message about what love really is. And our correspondent Ann Abernathy has more.
You like sex?
What do you think?
Come on.
Every day we're exposed to hundreds, even thousands of commercial images of love. In the movies, in television, in advertising, and in books. And while many of those images are superficial, they're so powerful that they could be sabotaging your ability to have a truly loving relationship. So, how are all these images affecting you? Let's take a closer look at that picture. Would you agree that true love means finding the one person who is right for you, intense attraction to your partner, never being sexually attracted to anyone else? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then author-therapist Dr. Stan Katz says you're caught in the false love syndrome.
False love syndrome is what we've all been taught to believe true love is. It's really, in essence, the bombardment of media images that promote false love. It's the constant images that show us love as illusions.
And why do we keep buying into it, the false love image?
It's very seductive. It's very attractive. It's what we've been taught since we were children.
Love is a lot like baseball. It's not whether you win or lose. It's how you play the game.
Unfortunately, love is not a game. Anybody who looks to win in the game really is not going to develop a loving relationship. And if you maintain a belief that love is a game, you're most likely going to lose the game. The reality is most of the media shows us images of the most devastating kind of false love, and that is the intense false love which has no place to go but to dissipate. Commercials really teach us false love, and they reinforce it every 10 minutes on television. This is a confusing image. In one way, it's promoting kind of free love and sex without any kind of commitment, without any kind of understanding. And it looks very enticing, it looks very wonderful. It looks very shallow, however, very superficial. And what it teaches our teenagers is that sex is something that does not include love.
What's true love?
True love is something that develops over time. True love takes inherently a choice. You must choose to love someone, they must choose to love you.
Come on, get the ball. Get the ball. Go. Go.
Good girl.
So, will you still love me when I'm the mother of a 1-year-old?
Nice images of a relationship which includes romance, which includes commitment, which includes caring about each other, and I think really promotes true love. The bottom line is we need to view love as a choice, and true love is often boring. It includes excitement and intensity, but the daily routine cannot always be exciting like a soap opera or a music video.
Ann Abernathy is with us now from Atlanta. And Ann, I have to say that I'm so relieved. I thought I was the only one who felt my life didn't look like a 501 jeans ad, and now I'm pleased to learn that that's universal. That's the point, isn't it?
I think that is the point. I mean, these images come at us all day long. We see them on MTV, we see them in commercials, and real life is just not that way. And Dr. Katz tells us, time and time again, he says, although it's difficult, and we have all that coming at us, that true love is a choice. It's something that you actively choose to do. And you don't just do it once. You keep doing it entirely through the relationship.
Do people, even kids, really get confused by this? It seems to me we can separate sex from love, and it's not too hard to make the distinction.
I think his most important point has to do with MTV. When you and I used to listen to a song on the radio, we conjured up our very own images of love. Now kids watch MTV, and the actual MTV tells them what to think.
Thanks, Ann, so much. We have been talking about that this week, in fact, that falling in love and being in love are not the same thing.
No.
Thanks, Ann. In a minute, we'll have more of our exclusive interviews with Vice President Bush and Governor Dukakis, but first, Greetings from a place that will be on everyone's minds in the next few weeks, Seoul Olympics.
Hi, I'm Missy Lane, and I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Hi, I'm Michelle Lettieri, and I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And we're here in Seoul, Korea, shopping till we drop. And we want to say hi to a friend of ours, Martha Nolan, also in Minneapolis. Hi, Martha. Hi, Martha.
Last week, I interviewed George Bush and Michael Dukakis on the day we released our first USA Today CNN poll of the fall campaign. We felt the interview showed a side of both candidates not often seen on television these days, and we wanted to bring you more of those interviews this weekend. I began by asking the Vice President what he says to people who want to vote for him, but who are worried about Senator Dan Quayle being a heartbeat away from the presidency.
I don't think there are many people that fit that description. There was for a while. I never saw such a pounding a young man took, but that's turned around, and if you could travel with me, Edie, out across this country, you'd feel it. But let me tell you something, Edie. This election is going to be decided like every other election. I'd love to feel that it was my scintillating charisma that helped Ronald Reagan get elected. I can't prove that for you, though, because I think every survey shows that it's the top of the ticket that determines the election.
Let us assume for a moment that you win. Okay. What specific pieces of legislation can we expect to see you push in the first 100 days of your administration?
Well, I haven't made an agenda for the first 100 days. One of the things you'd have to do is sort out your budget, because I want to get the budget under control, implementing what I call a flexible freeze.
Have you asked Ronald Reagan for help this fall? Have you asked him to go out on the stump for you?
Yeah, and he has been, and he's doing a wonderful job for me.
Do you need his help?
Sure, I need the help of everybody. I want to get 51% of the vote, or make it this way, 50.1% in the proper electoral mix, I might add. But I need the help of every voter, of every political figure I can.
A lot of observers talk about you and Mr. Dukakis similarly in that both of you seem to have a lack of charisma. You don't stir us in our souls.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Do you need to be inspiring to be a good president?
I think it helps, but I got a long way to go in that department. But I also think there's another ingredient: honor, integrity, experience. And if I can project that, maybe I can get by without having an extra injection of charisma. But I'm getting more charismatic out there.
And we address that same question of charisma to Governor Michael Dukakis.
There's no way that you can win this kind of a nomination in the very competitive field that we had without being able to inspire people.
So you do think then that you are an inspiring political leader?
Well, I inspire people in different ways. I'm not somebody who gets up on a platform and gets them out of their seats. I'm somebody who I think inspires by example, inspires by the kind of leadership that I've provided, the kind of commitment I have to real people.
What specific legislation can we expect you to push in the first 100 days of your administration?
We're going to start with the National Economic Development Act, which will commit us to investing in those communities and regions of this country that are hurting and hurting badly and need growth and need jobs. We're going to pass a minimum wage bill, welfare reform bill. At the same time, obviously, we'll be working together on a strong national defense. The veto of the defense authorization bill, in my judgment, was a terrible mistake. It apparently was done at the Vice President's behest for political reasons.
You are said to have resisted until very recently engaging him in these kind of direct attacks. I guess my question is, would you rather lose a clean campaign or win a dirty one?
Well, I've been through campaigns of this kind, and I've gone through at least a couple of them which were virtual carbon copies of what Mr. Bush is trying to do. And I learned painfully that whether one likes it or not, one has to respond and call into question the strength and the ability of one's opponent.
Is running for president what you thought it was going to be?
I'm not sure one really knows when one begins this long road what it's going to be like. You know, you're up in the air so much, and when you're coming down and doing an event and going back up in the air again, it isn't exactly the most natural and normal environment that one spends time in.
This weekend's Viewer's Guide to Election 88 comes to us from the site of the first presidential debate. Here is USA Today contributor Hedrick Smith.
When you pull out your scorecard for next weekend's presidential debate here at Wake Forest University, you'd better add an extra column, because George Bush and Michael Dukakis will be competing in not one event, but two events. And in the game of presidential campaign politics, the second event is often the more important. Your first column is for the live event, the 90-minute nationally televised debate that lets you as voters size up the two contenders head-to-head on the issues. Your extra column is for another event, the media event, the quick-hit soundbites that make television newscasts and newspaper headlines.
What you want to do going into a debate is have 2 or 3 one-liners in your pocket that you know you can come up with and you will use and they'll be effective.
Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
What we did in that debate was give him a series of questions he could use, and we knew going in that they would have impact.
One-liners can cut both ways, up or down. In 1976, President Ford impaled himself with one short gaffe.
There is no Soviet domination of Eastern Europe, and there never will be under a Ford administration.
That misstatement cost Ford dearly.
It all came because of that gaffe and the fact it was shown over and over again. It was the one-liner that killed.
In 1984, after a sluggish performance in his first debate with Walter Mondale, Reagan was prepared in the second debate for questions about the age issue.
I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit, for political purposes, my opponent's youth and inexperience.
How about next week? The speechwriters are already honing one-liners for the Bush-Dukakis debate. Try these for one-upmanship. Mike Dukakis, standing right here, gives George Bush a hard time for wimpy handling of Panama strongman Noriega on the drug issue. And Bush answers back, "Listen, Mike, we'd arrest him, but you'd let him out on weekend furlough." Or Bush, over there, throws Jimmy Carter's economic headaches at Mike Dukakis. And Dukakis replies, "Listen, George, I'm not Jimmy Carter, and you're not Ronald Reagan."
Coming up, an exclusive interview with actress Susan Sarandon on life after Bull Durham and how she likes working with Marlon Brando in her new film. First, a look at some of the stories we'll be working on next week. Sexy, free-spirited, and fast becoming one of the most sought-after movie stars of the 80s. That's Susan Sarandon. She's also a mother and political activist. Her new movie, Sweetheart's Dance with Don Johnson, opens next Friday. Our correspondent Boyd Matson caught her in London, where she's at work on the anti-apartheid film Dry White Season.
I mean, I'm not the most beautiful actress. I'm not, incredibly powerful in terms of commanding projects either. So you get these kind of strange projects that people don't really know what to do with. That's a lot of the work that I've gotten.
Now that work has taken her to London for an anti-apartheid film with Marlon Brando, whose celebrity mystique overshadows all else.
Well, it must be an incredible burden, because certainly when he does walk into a room, real life just stops, and there is a moment of kind of gawking that does go on, but then when you start to watch him work, he's just wonderful and very humble and very kind, and everything that you could have hoped for, very beautiful.
A Dry White Season, being filmed at England's Pinewood Studios, allows Sarandon to salve her social conscience on film. But most of her political commitment isn't designed to bring fame. It has taken her to, among other places, Nicaragua, as a member of Madre, a group of mothers who deliver food and milk and medical supplies to children who are victims of war.
I feel I'm qualified to be an expert in my own survival and to have an opinion as an American. I certainly would never tell people what to think.
But other people are influenced by what celebrities say.
Well, we have a president who's an ex-actor. I guess that's taking it to the full extreme, isn't it?
It's been an 18-year career of extremes in the character Sarandon's played. But even from the early cult classic, the Rocky Horror Picture Show, she has revealed a quirky beauty fans love.
Got an Academy Award nomination for Atlantic City. A wonderful acting role, but many people, like myself, remember this one scene out of all of that of you rubbing lemon juice on your body to cool off.
Yeah. people are constantly sending me lemons, and if it had just been Dom Perignon or money or something, I would, to this day, I'm still getting lemons sent to me in restaurants.
This time, if you get nominated, there'd be no question it would, what category it would be in.
For the only girl in a baseball film, yeah.
It's my job to give them life wisdom and help them get on to the major leagues.
Her role as a motivational guru to young ball players in Bull Durham is seen by many as a part that will push her career to a new level of stardom. Ironically, it comes after Sarandon decided to devote more time to her personal life, off-screen.
I was very lucky because I was at a point in my life where the mystery was definitely gone from my chosen career. And I was looking for something that had made some kind of difference, that felt real, that was worthy of me.
That reality was supplied by Sarandon's daughter, Eva Marie, born 3.5 years ago.
She was a real gift. If anything, it certainly does strengthen your priorities. I mean, you know exactly why you're doing things, and it's also made me even more committed politically.
You've been characterized as the example of the 80s woman. Can you have it all and have it easily?
If someone would do my packing, it would be so much easier. I don't know. There are a lot of women who are doing the same thing that have a lot less help than I do. But I think if you came to most coffee clutches these days, women would be talking more about finding nannies than they would about finding men, definitely.
What's my wife doing in your bed?
I wanted to have sex with him, but he didn't want to.
Why not? What's wrong with her?
Finding a man isn't the problem in her next film. It's taking care of him. In Sweetheart's Dance with Don Johnson, she plays a drudge of a housewife who has to hold life together for a husband who never grew up.
Has that ever happened to you in real life?
I think yeah. One time, someone in my life who just kept saying, "You're so much better at packing than I am, you know, couldn't you?" And I thought, why is it that he, you know, this man's 15 years older than I am, he can't pack? You know, finally I realized why. Nobody likes to pack. Why should I have to be the one that does the packing, you know? That just little things like that start to just drive you crazy.
What do you want people to take from your life? Do you want them to take more than just entertainment?
Oh, God, that's a lot, you know. If people can forget about their troubles for 2 seconds and feel something and have some kind of courage after that, just any kind of personal courage and dignity, I'll be real pleased.
Some people are really adding to their frequent flyer accounts. Boyd Matson went right from London to Seoul to cover the Olympics for us, and he'll have a story from there later in the show. Kenneth Walker is next with Money with a look at classic cars. But first, this snapshot and a message.
Every day.